Am I the asshole for refusing to make amends after my ex-best friend reached out to me? The other night I got an Instagram message and was confused, thinking it might have been a mistake. It turned out to be my ex-best friend from high school, someone that I hadn't seen or spoken to in years. She wanted to meet up and talk about catching up. Hannah and I went to kindergarten together and were friends on and off throughout our school years. Our mums were friends, which made it easier. I thought she was my person. That lasted until the summer before senior year when my mum got sick. She became very ill and passed away quickly. Entering senior year, I was in a very dark place. Hannah was my rock, along with the friends that we had at the time. I was starting to feel better, and when prom came around, I asked if we could go as friends. It felt right, and things were finally starting to feel okay again, until she ditched me at prom. I guess she and a couple of our other friends had planned a slumber party without me. I felt so embarrassed. No goodbye, no sorry we left you at the prom by yourself. It was even worse when I had to call my older sister to give me a ride home. I can still see the disappointment on her face. Even worse, the principal walked me to the car because I had asked him to check whether my friends had left prom. When I asked Hannah for an explanation at school, all she said was that she was tired. She says, "You've become toxic with your sadness. Every day you cry and whine about missing her. I loved your mum too, but you make it so hard to be around you." Honestly, I couldn't breathe after that. How does a kid respond to that? I ended high school with no friends, and it didn't help that she never told her mum what really happened. On graduation day, Hannah's mum gave me flowers and thanked me for being her daughter's friend. I told her the truth about prom and walked away before I started to cry. I left those things behind me, and now she has the audacity to try to patch things up. I can't. At least, I don't think I can. We spent so much of my childhood together that I just don't know. She looks like she's done well for herself, so maybe she has changed. But I was deeply hurt, and I don't think I ever recovered. This turned into a really long vent post. I'm sorry. In the comments, not the asshole. She abandoned you when you needed her most and said cruel stuff that stuck with you for years. You don't owe her closure or a reunion. If reconnecting hurts more than it helps, you have every right to keep that door closed. OP replies, "I think the only reason I would ever want to talk to her again is to see if her mum is okay. Hannah's mum had a stroke roughly a year ago and hasn't gotten much better, or so I'd heard." Professional Train says, "Not the asshole." Doesn't sound like the message was an apology. Unless the message was a complete apology, showing self-reflection and with no obligation on you to give her closure, don't open the door to your heart. She will hurt you again. OP says, "It was a short hello. A gif from friends of Joey saying, 'How you doing?' and 'Would I be up to meet for lunch to talk?' You can see now why this surprised me out of nowhere." When asked what happened to the friend group from high school, OP says, "As far as I know, our original friend group broke up after high school because they all felt conflicted regarding everything that happened our senior year. I had some friends that agreed that my grief was valid, however, the majority of them agreed with her." Honestly, I don't think you're the asshole for this one either here, OP. This to me just sounds like a case of the axe forgets but the tree remembers, and I highly doubt she remembers everything that went down, but you remember what happened, and you remember how she made you feel from everything that she did. I completely relate. I completely understand where you're coming from in this one. And yeah, just to pop up with a "how you doing" gif. It really just doesn't sound to me like she remembered what she put you through, or maybe she doesn't care, and she's like, "You know what, let's just have a lunch, we'll talk it out, if things come up, they come up, we'll deal with it then." Who knows? But if you don't want to do it and you're not ready to have a conversation with her, you don't have to. That's okay. You can always just say, "No, sorry, I'm busy," and leave it at that. Not the asshole. And now, onto the update. So I made a post about a week ago regarding an old friend, Hannah, trying to make contact with me. We were close growing up together, but after losing my mum at 17, we had issues. I was apparently too much to deal with because my grief was toxic and I would cry too much for anything. The post was removed, but I was still hoping to give an update since people had given feedback on how to approach the situation. Hannah messaged me Friday again, asking if we can meet up at the local mall food court on Saturday, since we used to hang out there all the time. I thought, well, I had to go to the mall on the weekend anyways to pick up an order, I might as well hear her out. Of all the hypothetical scenarios that my anxiety and stress had popped into my head, I didn't expect her to actually be there. Worst of all, with Christy, another one of my friends from school that was cold to me after my mum's passing. I hesitated to even approach the table once I saw them together. They were older, which makes sense. It's been years since high school, and we were all adults. I gave myself a hypothetical 30 minutes. Only 30 minutes, and I never have to see their faces again. I approached the table. We sat down and talked, and Hannah talked, and she talked a lot. Apparently, our old high school teacher, who ran the club that we were all in together, wanted to do a reunion with us. She apparently couldn't get in contact with all of us, and was curious if Hannah wouldn't mind getting my info. Christy mentioned that I was the only one that she couldn't get in contact with. That's it. I anticipated some kind of catharsis to come, but all I felt was rage. What else is there? I broke. I mentioned what happened after my mum. I mentioned how lonely I felt after being ignored and called annoying for grieving. I mentioned how it took me so long to trust again after the people that I considered friends just left me. That I would come home to an empty house after school instead of my mum cooking dinner or talking to me. Both Hannah and Christy were quiet while I stood there at the point of tears. I can't even remember standing up. I felt childish crying, but seriously? You send me a message wanting to meet up and talk to make amends? Just to tell me that you're only doing this because a random teacher who we sat in a classroom with for 30 minutes every Friday told you? I composed myself. I wasn't about to have a mental breakdown in the middle of a damn food court. I said, I needed you then, and I don't need this now. Hannah shut down, and I could tell that my words had done something to her. Christy just got mad. She reprimanded Hannah and said that there was no point in finding me, and this proved it. Christy chalked up everything that happened in high school to kids being kids, and that it was the past. I said okay, grabbed my things, and excused myself, and left. I cried once I made it back to my car. They have changed, but it's clear that they haven't changed how they felt about how they treated me. Never once did they say sorry. They clearly expected me to just get over it. Again, sorry for the long post, but I hope putting this out there will give me the clarity that I needed. Thank you for listening. In the comments, This Guy Is Awesome says, you should reach out to the teacher and tell them what happened back then and now, and then let them know that's why you won't attend. OP says, the club teacher, Miss Diaz, was actually aware of the situation at the time. I had been telling her, and actually had been attending club only for club events, never club activities. She accommodated for me. She was actually really understanding of how I felt at the time, and I would like to get back to her to express my appreciation for her. Half-Eaten Snickers says, people's willingness to forget their own fuck-up will always astound me. That's the kind of shit that would keep me up at night. Every so often, I wonder if I'm actually a good person, or my propensity of being haunted by my memories of not being a good person sort of artificially threatens me into masquerading as a good person. I didn't offer to walk an old lady across the street 20 years ago, and I still think about it. Why am I still thinking about it? Relentless Dandelion says, the good thing is, it doesn't matter whether you're pretending. Being a good person isn't a static thing, it's an action. So if your behavior is generally respectful and kind, then that's all that matters. I can't believe how many examples of axe forgets but the tree remembers there actually are. The tree is now marching on Isengard. The tree fights back. I'm proud of you for being the tree that marches on Isengard, OP. I think you did the right thing. You gave it a shot. You wanted to see if there was potentially going to be some reconciliation, and it turns out there's not. There's no reason to go back to them now. I'm proud of you for doing that, OP. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. And yeah, I do think that Miss Diaz deserves to be reached out to in order to acknowledge the help that she gave you throughout all of that. Because, yeah, what those friends did was incredibly hurtful, incredibly messed up, and that should never have happened to you. It's never annoying to grieve the death of your mother. Those kids, and now these adults, just completely lacked empathy. Especially given her mum had a stroke and is still going through it. You want to know if her mum is better? She should be able to empathize with the deteriorating health of a parent and be like, wow, my mum might die. Now I know how I made her feel, but still, no, none of that. Even after she's matured, even after she has become an adult, she still lacks empathy. She still does not care. For your mental health, it's good that you separate from those people because they are incredibly toxic. Thank you for the story and thank you for the update. Our next post is by user Whole Pomegranate, and it's titled, "My parents tried to screw over my dying stepmother, but they blew up all of our lives instead. My 17 female stepmother Jane is a wonderful, wonderful woman. She and my father got married when I was 4, and she's been a rock in my life ever since. My mother was always my primary caregiver, but up until that point, her relationship with my father was acrimonious, and I basically never saw him. Jane was the reason they developed a stable co-parenting relationship. She encouraged everyone having a good relationship with each other and was always there to support me and my mum when things got rough. Jane was always a really hard worker. When she met my dad, he was living out of a hotel, and my mother was doing everything in her power to keep me away from him because she was petty and angry that their relationship didn't work out. Meanwhile, Jane had a great job, a nice house, helped my dad get back on his feet, negotiated a visitation schedule with my mum, who hated her for a long time, and made sure that my dad sent us money every week because neither one of them could afford an attorney to negotiate child support payments. Jane had no reason to do any of these things, but as I got older, she made it clear that she loved me as much as she loved my half-brothers, who were born a few years later. I even have my own room in her house because at the time we lived with my grandparents/various boyfriends of my mum, and Jane felt that I needed a more stable environment than that. She's like the opposite of the evil stepmom. When I was 15, Jane won a big lawsuit against an airline company and got awarded upwards of $1 million. She used the money to build sizable trust funds for me and my brothers so that we would be taken care of later in life. Despite having a lot more money, she still wanted to live a fairly modest life, so she paid off the house that she has and has been living there ever since with my dad. Sure, she bought a new car and they went on a few nice vacations, but she didn't blow all of her money on stupid things, which I respected. About a year ago, things started getting really weird. Whenever I saw Jane, she seemed to look sicker and sicker, but no one would tell me or my brothers why, even though I know they knew. All we knew was that she was at the hospital a lot. Around the same time, my mother had been coming around my dad a lot more and acting really strange, basically like she was trying to romance him. Whenever Jane was in the hospital, my mother would insist on spending the night at their house and playing mum to my brothers, which was so weird to me because she never liked them or Jane. She would be the perfect little housewife, and my mum is not like that at all. It was super fake. Worst of all, my dad started falling for it. I'm not stupid. I'm pretty sure they were sleeping together. I tried to shield my brothers from it, but they're not dumb either. I tried talking to my dad too, but he insisted that it wasn't like that. Then a few weeks ago, my mum started talking about all the places that she'd like to visit, how she wanted a new car, and was looking to invest. Which is weird, because my mum has been a bartender her whole life and has lived paycheck to paycheck since before I was born. She was acting like she was about to get a lot of money, which started to make me really suspicious. Between Jane being sick and my mum acting all nouveau riche, I had a lot of questions. Finally, I decided to visit Jane in the hospital and ask her about my trust fund. I found out that if anything happened to her, that my dad would inherit all of the money, including full control to the trusts for me and my brothers. She asked me why I was so interested in the trust fund, so I told her what's going on with my parents and how my mom has been acting with my dad. I didn't want to, but after everything she did for me, she deserved the truth. It really hurt me to break her heart like that, especially once I found out that she was basically in hospice at this point because of irreversible kidney failure. She's only got a few more months. We both cried so much. Then, 2 days ago, everything came to a head. My mum stormed in furious and started arguing with my dad. Apparently, Jane met with her lawyer and changed the trust so that my dad would get nothing and all of the trust would be controlled by my step-aunt. She demanded to know how Jane found out about their relationship, and I came out and told them that I told Jane everything. I told them that if they wanted to play stupid games, they would win stupid prizes, and that I wasn't going to let them screw Jane over after all of the help that she gave my family when she didn't have to. My mum slapped me, and my dad just looked so defeated. And then my mum told my dad that she didn't really love him, that she was just pretending to so that he would marry her and she could get all of the money. The worst part about it is that my brothers witnessed the whole thing, and now on top of their mum dying, they have to deal with a cheating dad and his vindictive ex. Our whole family is in ruins, and I feel like it's my fault, even though I know it's not. Yesterday, I visited Jane again and told her about the fallout. She apologized and said that she had to dissolve my trust fund to make sure that my mother didn't get a hold of the money, but that as her oldest, I will inherit the house/property after she is gone, and that's worth more than the other 2 trust funds combined. My father won't get anything because she's going to divorce him before she dies. And honestly, I'm happy for her. She made me promise to take care of my brothers, and told me that once I turn 18 this summer, I can kick my dad out of the house if I want to, and I fully plan to do that, by the way. I haven't talked to my dad since, and I can't even look at my mum. I can't believe they would conspire to do this to Jane after all this time. Just proof that they deserve each other, and I'm embarrassed that they're my parents. Once I turn 18, I'm going to cut my dad out as much as I can, and cut my mum out completely. I hope she rots. Meanwhile, I'm going to try and be at the hospital as much as I can until Jane passes away. Anyways, I just needed to vent. I'm really messed up about the whole thing, and I feel super betrayed. Although I can't even begin to imagine how Jane feels. I'm gonna be so effed up when she dies. I can't even think about that right now. But at least she's not surrounded by people who just want to bring her down. Thanks for reading. Edit, some people are asking a lot of the same stuff, so I'll just clarify here. On my brothers, my plan is to use some of the estate money to fight for guardianship for my twin brothers so that they can live in the house while I kick my dad out. If I can't get guardianship, then I'll have to let my dad stay in the house. However, once I turn 18, I will technically be an adult, so even if my dad leaves, I'm still legally able to be responsible for them. The only thing I won't be able to do is stop him from taking them if he leaves. But they'll be 18 in 6 years, so even if they do have to leave, they will always be able to come back whenever they want. In a perfect world, my dad would just leave and let my brothers stay with me, which I'm sure Bio Mum would be very supportive of, because right now she hates all of us, and I doubt that will change anytime soon. On the trust, from what I understand, my brothers will inherit 1/3 each of the estate, and the remaining 1/3 will be used to keep the house running until they turn 18. After that, it'll be up to me if I want to keep the house or sell it. At that point, my brothers will still have money left in the trust, so they can branch out or do whatever they want. Otherwise, I will not sell the house and will just pass it on to them or keep it and maintain it myself, and they can just stay with me as long as they need to. Edit to edit. So I just spoke to Jane, and she told me that the reason she dissolved the trust is because originally it was going to be split 3 ways between us kids, and my dad would inherit the house. She dissolved my third and switched it over to make it take care of the house maintenance, and instead put the house in my name so that my dad wouldn't get it. Plus, by doing that, at least financially, I would be getting a much bigger share. The house is worth about 1.5 times the amount of my brother's trusts. I just wouldn't be able to do anything with it until my brothers are 18, which I'm totally cool with. Sorry if I don't have a better answer, but I'm just trying to translate what she told me. On my parents, the big fight happened on Sunday, and I haven't spoken to either of my parents since. I think they're both at my mum's place right now. But that's fine with us because we're all still mad at them, so they can stay gone for all we care. I know technically that's not legal to just leave us alone, but I've been taking care of my brothers for over a year. I can handle a few days while he gets his shit together. Screw both of them. I hope that clears some stuff up. In the comments, Zane says, I'm so sorry that you're going through such a hard time, OP. The most important thing that you've inherited from Jane is a strong moral compass. You could have taken the easy road and ignored everything your mum and dad were doing, but your compassion to Jane is proof that you take after her the most. OP says, thanks a lot. Yeah, when my mum was yelling at me, she asked why I couldn't keep my mouth shut and mind my business, and I told her, because Jane raised me better than that. And that's when she slapped me. I feel like she's always been threatened by Jane, and that was just proof. I would scream, ooh, touchdown. OP says, lol, that would have been funny, but at the time, I was more worried about keeping my brothers out of the argument. Not that it worked, but I tried. You're a good kid, OP. I'm sorry you're losing the only parent who ever really cared. Jane was meant to be your mama. OP says, thank you. I've felt like that periodically over the years, but Jane always insisted that she didn't want to replace my bio mom in my life because a girl's relationship with her mother is important. I guess she didn't realize that I already had one. Aw, that's so sweet. And yeah, of course the right thing for OP to do in this situation was to tell Jane about what her parents were up to. Of course, OP's mum is going to react the way that she did because she was just trying to screw everyone over. Tale as old as time, that one. I do question why OP keeps saying that she wants to give the house over to the boys when they're 18. Like, am I picking up on that right? I'm reading that she wants to wait until they're 18 and give them the house? I feel like that's not correct, but I feel like OP shouldn't do that. Anyway, let's see what happens. And now, onto the update. Hi guys, it's me again. A lot of you asked me for an update on my situation with Jane and my family, so I've come back with a few things that have happened since I initially posted. I will try to organize this in a way that addresses the major points of last time. Jane is still alive and doing surprisingly well considering the circumstances. She's always been a fighter, and although her disease has been progressing, she's keeping a positive attitude with everything that's going on. She says she's grateful that she was able to see everyone's true colors before she passed, so she could go into the next life knowing the truth. We have become so unbelievably close in the past few months, and it's getting harder and harder to know that she's getting close to the end. She doesn't ever talk about it though, and I know it's because she doesn't want to hurt me, but we both know the situation, so we're just making the best of our time. I'm also not being completely transparent about all of the drama at home, but to be honest, I don't think she needs to hear all of that. We did end up having that surprise celebration of life that I planned. A lot more people showed up than I thought, but they all got an Airbnb near the hospital where Jane is, and we were able to take her out and spend some time at the lake near the facility. It was super low-key, which I know Jane preferred, and I was even able to get her old college friend to come after I found him on LinkedIn. We had food, and there was music, and we played games, and it was overall a really great time. Except Jane started crying at the end, but she promised me it was just because she was grateful. My brothers are also doing okay. My aunt, Jane's sister, is currently paying for them to go to therapy, and they've become a lot more open about talking about the situation. They just turned 13, but a lot of the time it feels like I'm actually talking to actual adults. They've become really independent lately, in a good way, and aside from me driving them places, I don't really have to do much for them anymore. Their grades aren't super great, but they're not failing, and considering the circumstances, it could be a lot worse. They still hang out with friends, and I'm keeping an eye out for like depression symptoms and stuff. The situation with my mum is as funny as it is embarrassing, to be honest. She spent a few weeks ignoring us, and then she tried to crawl back into my life, basically begging me to let her move in because her lease is about to expire and she has nowhere to go. That convo went about as well as you'd think, and she ended up calling me an ungrateful bitch, and that I couldn't just ignore her because she's my mum. I told her to get out of my house before I call the cops and to go back to my dad, who at that point was only coming home every few days to check on us and grab some clothes. After that, she tried coming by a few times, and when I wouldn't open the door, she would lose her mind and start yelling through the neighborhood. After 3 instances of this, I finally called the cops, But because I'm 17, they told me there's a possibility that I would have to go home with her since technically I'm a minor and need to be with a custodial parent. I told them no way, because I was the only one watching my brothers at the moment. That led to a whole thing where after a few hours, my dad basically showed up and I was allowed to stay there because there was finally an adult present and I'd basically lived there for over a year. After the cops firmly told my mum that if she keeps showing up and causing drama, my neighbors confirmed that she'd been there a few times screaming, that they would arrest her for trespassing, since technically it was Jane's house and not hers. She left and hasn't tried coming to the house anymore, but for a while, she would call me, constantly telling me that I owed her and all kinds of stuff. She's now blocked on everything, and anything she needs to say to me gets filtered through my dad. As for my dad, well, since he's basically required to be here for another 2 months until I turn 18, we've basically just avoided each other. It's not too bad though, because I've been heavily relying on guilting him for everything to get my way. For example, he was going to contest the divorce, but I threatened to kick him out when I turn 18 if he does that, so he just signed all the paperwork for a quickie divorce, and is basically doing whatever Jane tells him to do. I don't openly disrespect him or anything, he is still my dad, but I've made it clear that I have no intentions on doing anything he says ever again, and he doesn't fight me on it. Most of the time, he's just in his room, and sometimes he'll go back to my mum's, but only for a day or two before they argue and she kicks him out again. I haven't decided whether or not I'll kick him out yet, and we haven't talked about it yet either, so I'm kind of playing it by ear. As for me, I'm handling everything as good as I can. I found a new job where I make a little more money, so I've been focusing on saving as much as I can and just being there for my brothers. Between working in school and visiting Jane, I've been so busy, I haven't really had time to really stop and think about everything, but I know that it'll come. One of my friends has really stepped up and helped me manage everything, and I'm super grateful to him for being there for me and my brothers, so we'll see how that goes. Anyways, I wish I had something more exciting to share, but that's what's happened since my last post. Again, thank you for all the support on my last post. And now onto the final update. Hello everyone, it's me again. I've gotten quite a few messages in the past months asking for an update, so I'm going to post my final update here and hope that it's enough to answer the questions that everyone has been asking. I'm sorry that it took so long to update, but a lot has been going on. As many of you may already assume, Jane passed away early fall of this year. It was very traumatic and sudden, but the silver lining is that she exceeded every doctor's expectation for her life, and when she did go, she was surrounded by family, including me, my brothers, and my dad. She was on palliative care and felt no pain, except for a brief moment right at the end, and we are all very grateful for that. Towards the end, Jane was physically pretty much done, but her mind was as sharp as ever. I took the advice of many of you here and recorded some voice notes for my brothers. I originally wanted to do video, but by the time we were able to do it, we both decided they didn't need to remember her wrapped in tubes and in a hospital gown. She also wrote many letters for her family, friends, and even for me to open when I reached certain milestones. She gave me one to open right after she passed away, and while I won't share too many details, I can say with absolute certainty that she is, and forever will be, who I consider my mother without question. It was very, very emotional for everyone, and although it's been a few months, I'm still very heartbroken about her no longer being with us. She was a kind, gentle woman, and in my heart, she is who I aspire to be. My brothers are obviously very hurt about our mum dying, but just like before, they are taking it surprisingly well. They are still going to therapy, both together and separately, and we have a lot of conversations whenever they feel like talking. We've always been close, but I feel like we are closer now. Even though I work, we hang out as often as we can, and I'm doing everything I can to be the support that they need. They don't know it, but I definitely need them as much as they need me, because they're the only ones I can really talk to about anything. Ironically, now that our family glue is gone, we're pulling together stronger than before. My dad and I mended the fences, so to speak. We went to a few therapy sessions together where he took full responsibility for his behavior, and I've forgiven him as much as I can, especially since he eventually started doing everything he could to be there for Jane at the end, even though they still went through with the divorce. He's still living with us, and things are a little tense, but they're much better than before. He's my dad, and I love him, but he was also broken by Jane's condition, and he wasn't able to cope in a healthy manner. Her dying really brought some light into his eyes, so to speak, and now he's really stepping up to be the man that he was supposed to be. A lot of people commented saying too little too late, but again, he's my dad, and for my own mental health, I have chosen to forgive him. As far as I know, my bio mom pretty much vanished off the face of the earth when I turned 18. She tried a few times to convince me to let her live with us, but I wasn't having any of it. Even my dad told her that he's officially done, and after we all blocked her and everything, she stopped reaching out. She doesn't have any relatives who talk to her, so I don't have to worry about that. But I did hear from people who follow her on Facebook that she has a new boyfriend that she is living with. I don't want to stalk her or anything. I really don't care. She hasn't come to me with any kind of apology, so to be honest, she can get bent. It's a little hard for me to think that she would just walk away the second I turned legal just because she didn't get any of Jane's money, but oh well, true colors and all that. I guess 18 years was too long to pretend to care. I'm just so angry with her, I don't want anything to do with her anymore. Maybe that will change one day, but I'm not holding my breath. As for me, I'm doing pretty okay. I decided to take a year before I start college to handle all of this bullshit, and I'm still at the same job, so I'm saving up money wherever I can. My friends have all been great supporters, and I'm so grateful for everyone, especially you Reddit folks who have been checking in on me and making sure I'm okay. I'm taking things one day at a time, and that's been working great to keep me focused. My goal is to go to college next year and study journalism, but I'm playing it by ear. I can always go back to school, but right now, my family needs me, and if that takes longer than a year, then so be it. Thank you, everyone. This will be my last update, and I very much appreciate all the love and support that you've shown our family. Jane, I know, was very grateful for all of you too, and all I can say is hold your loved ones tight and be careful of anyone who seems too good to be true. Much love and blessings to you all. In the comments, Hill Mickelson says, "Who has control over the money that Jane left for her children? Does your father have access to it? Is it possible that his attitude only changed because he's expecting to gain access to the money that Jane left? He might still be secretly involved with your biological mom and only pretending to change his behavior as a way to get closer to Jane's money." OP says, "For a while, I did honestly think this. However, shortly after Jane died, I found out he was looking into apartments to move into. When I confronted him about it, he said that he was trying to be respectful and assumed I wouldn't want to have anything to do with him, so he was preparing just in case. I think the fact that he wasn't parading his plan around in front of me to try and get brownie points says a lot. That, and the fact that he's been very involved in our therapy, gives me a lot of hope. I understand a lot of people have had bad experiences, but like I've been saying, my dad isn't a bad person, he's just stupid." True Falsity says, "Depends on how you found out, really. It's not exactly unrealistic that your father would manipulate you into finding out so that he could play the pity card. And while it's great that he's involved in therapy, being stupid and evil are not mutually exclusive. I get that the main source of the problem was your bio mom, but your father was still willing to hurt Jane and you and your brothers as long as it made him happy. Just saying, you should keep an eye on him for your own safety and sake." OP says, "My dad isn't smart enough to manipulate me like that, nor do I think he wants or wanted to. I'd say maybe my bio mom put him up to it, but at that point they were no longer communicating. I understand there's a lot of people in that thread who are determined to make my dad the villain, but he's done a lot to pave the way towards forgiveness, and I know Jane would want me to allow him to make it right. Well, it's great that you trust your dad to make amends and do better now, but I don't think anyone is determined to make him the villain. Nobody here knows him as a person, so the only thing anyone can do here is base their opinions about him based on the information that you have provided. and it doesn't really portray him in the best of light. I get the desire to excuse his actions as the fault of your biological mother, but manipulation or not, he still went along with her plans, and the only reason that it failed was thanks to you, not him. I do hope that you're right about him being genuine in his attempt though, and I do hope that he actually puts in the work for the sake of you and your brothers. And me too, OP. I guess time will tell with that situation there. And I agree with the commenters that being stupid and evil are not mutually exclusive, especially in this situation, seeing the evils he was willing to do against Jane in her last days. I hope that he actually puts in the work for everyone's sake in this one, because while it was pretty inexcusable what he did, there is the possibility for redemption after all of this. There is the possibility that he genuinely realized the error of his ways, realized how messed up what he did was, and he wants to come and fix this with you. Again, I don't know how likely it is for him to genuinely do that, but I hope he does. Thank you for the story, and thank you for the update, OP. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.